So I want to take you back to the very beginning. What was the transition like from Australia to then moving all the way to England? What was that like for you? What did it entail almost?
Yeah, so my parents were English and immigrated to Australia probably in the sort of mid 60s, I suppose. My father used to be an apprentice at Preston North End as a player,
Oh, right.
but didn't get taken on professionally and decided to move out to Australia, where he played football out there, well, soccer they like to call it out there. But yeah, played football, so I was always sort of in and around it. Played my junior football at sort of a club called Western Bears, where I grew up. It was just a small country town. And then, yeah, just sort of grew and grew. And then I was about 15, I think, and I made the Catholic colleges, schools, New South Wales Catholic colleges team, and went on tour to Argentina and Chile,
Oh, right.
which was a fantastic experience at such a young age. And from Argentina, I flew to the UK where my parents were over for Christmas, and I had a trial with Liverpool for a couple of weeks, and then went up to Middlesbrough for a month. Both both clubs thought that I sort of had something, but wasn't better than what they had.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was quite tough at that sort of young age, I suppose, to get rejected. But the experience that I gained and the opportunity to sort of be in England at those sort of clubs was just amazing. Like Liverpool, you're talking. Kenny Dalglish was manager at the time, so there's John Barnes, Steve McMahon, Ronnie Whelan, all those types of players at the club at the time. So that was just fantastic for me. I played a couple of games for the under-16s, Liverpool. But yeah, so I basically went home after Christmas, spending Christmas over here with some family. Went back to school, finished school, and my dad just said, "Look, if you want to make a go of it and you want to have a career, then you've got to be in England." So that was it. I wrote letters asking for trials, and Tottenham was one of the clubs that replied to me, and I sort of supported them as a boy. I know Watford fans will probably hate me for saying that, but supported Tottenham as a kid, so it was just a dream come true for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, at 16, I packed my bags, got on the plane, and flew to England by myself. So
Yeah.
it was quite sort of daunting, I suppose, looking back at it now. I know times have changed, and it's more difficult for young players to do that now. I don't think players are allowed to sign until they're 18 unless they move countries with their whole family. So yeah, it's a little bit different. But no, landed at left Australia in November, which was like 30 odd degrees, and landed in a blizzard at Heathrow.
That's a brilliant introduction to England, that.
Yeah, yeah. Got put in with a family, lived with a family there, and I probably spent about 3 months at Tottenham. At that time, they had a couple of youth teams, an A and a B. So I mainly played in the B side. But they had the likes of Darren Caskey, Nicky Barmby, Sol Campbell,
Yeah.
sort of all those sorts of players. So in the end, the sort of academy director at the time, Keith Walden, he couldn't offer me anything, but my coach at the time was Patsy Holland, the old West Ham winger. He wanted to keep me, but the decision was made that they weren't going to offer me anything going forward. At that time, the Watford manager was a chap called Steve Perryman,
Right.
who obviously was Tottenham's captain for many years, and bit of a connection with the two clubs. And Tottenham got in touch with Watford and just basically said, "Look, we've got this lad here, not quite up to our level, but you might want to have a look at him." So I went and played a game for the Watford under-16s. away to West Ham, and Kenny Jackett, who was the youth team coach at the time, he said, "Yeah, we'll sign you." So I went to Watford, finished my apprenticeship, and the rest is history. They say I stayed, yeah, signed professionally in 1992,
Yeah.
and yeah, left in 2003 in the end. So I was there a long time.
And when you first moved over, especially at such a young age, did you feel there's a big difference in the style of football played?
Yeah, so obviously conditions have a lot to do with it. Growing up in Australia, part of Australia that was quite warm anyway. It was a lot slower. Physically wasn't as demanding. I was only training like a couple of times a week, playing every weekend. And then to come into, well, a different culture, different lifestyle, different weather, I suppose, going into full-time training, full-time football,
Yeah.
it was a big shock to the system, and it took time to adjust to it. But yeah, look, it was fantastic. It was a dream come true for me. It's all I ever wanted to do as a young kid, was to become a professional footballer. So, and I was only going to do that in England. So I was quite lucky at the time, obviously having English parents, that I was able to have dual nationality.
Yeah.
So I had an Australian passport and a British passport. So that was predominantly the reason that I was able to stay here. But yeah, it took some time to adjust to everything. A big part of that probably was homesickness as well, having to leave my family. Didn't have sort of that support network, if you like. Although the families I lived with were brilliant in looking after me. It was just having that sort of family there around you,
Yeah.
and things go bad or you get injured, and it can become quite lonely, to be honest. But no, I was very fortunate that Kenny Jackett, who was the youth team coach at the time, was a bit of a father figure to me as well. Really looked after me. The club were great, and I had some good teammates that I still speak to today. So yeah, I was very fortunate.